All right, so speech number one of the video ones, uh, the security of the United States versus Russia. And you go with the PowerPoint. So you're going to start with the domestic on the first slide here after the title. And comparison between the U.S. and Russia. In physical, the United States is a democratic republic, whereas Russia is a constitutional federation with a semi-presidential executive branch, meaning they split it between a president and a prime minister, which splits the power, makes it a little bit more complicated. And Russia claims to be democratic, but it's all ran by one party. I mean, universally known, Putin's party. So they're not as they seem on the outside, giving the United States the definite edge in the security of their nation with the structure of the government. Both are universally recognized as states internationally. The United States has been in its modern form with this constitution since 1788, whereas Russia is in its current form since 1991 at the breakup of the Soviet Union. So with longevity and structure, physically, domestically, the United States definitely has the edge in security. As far as economics, the United States is a developed nation. Russia is developing. They're not near as developed economically. The GDP of Russia is less than 1/10 of the United States. Russia coming in at roughly $1.6 trillion, but compared to the U.S., which is $19.4 trillion, so less than a tenth. That's a drastic difference, giving the U.S. a much more stable economy. It's also much more capitalistic than Russian. Russia is divided into both capitalistic and government-owned organizations, and that causes issues for them. Immigration is also much more heavily regulated in Russia as compared to the United States, where immigration, whether it's viewed as a positive or a negative, and sometimes is a large part of the workforce, especially in lower paying jobs, such as on large farms, factory workers. Immigration is very large. The United States also does more subsidies for unemployment to try and aid in boosting that economy, not letting there be a drag as much. There is obviously debate on that, but it does add to an economic security and making sure even people without jobs have some type of security. And as we move on to the domestic part of humans, disease is not as big an issue in the United States. Very good health care. Human rights are first and foremost, all the way listed in the Constitution. Bill of Rights, very huge, and that's only been expanded through the years. And environmental protection is good. The EPA is out in front of that, regulating, trying to stay up on the codes, and making sure that we have that. As far as Russia goes, disease is an issue. HIV is very large there, as they try and combat that. Numbers have been going down, so they've been boosting, but still an issue. Human rights are not near as prominent. The government still takes a very hard stand on what they believe is right and wrong. And environmental protection is very poor. They have a very hard time with that. Oil leaks, spills from their big industries, those are big problems. They just do not have that care. Of course, they are only a developing nation, second world nation, so that kind of comes with that. And then as we move to the international, we have geographically secure the United States, good diplomacy, NATO big in that, and the UN. Mix of hard and soft power, use of both, high military spending. Russia also geographically secure, small amounts of diplomacy, not near as much. They tend to take a strictly hard power approach. Economically, the U.S. has high international trade, free trade, that new USMCA deal to reorganize the North American Free Trade Agreement. Very big. Economic, for Russia, energy trade is the biggest part of the economy, and the government controls that. It's it's 70 up to 70%, I believe, of their GDP every year and their government budget. So it's very drastically lying on that, which makes it much less secure. That's very fragile, especially with new energy sources. Uh, as far as human international, U.S. abides by all international standards of human rights, environmental, for the most part, very prominent in that, and with health. Russia, drugs and human trafficking are very large concerns there. It goes along right with the HIV as well, as listed domestically, which can cause us a lot of problems over there. And this is on the third slide as we move on to international. Sorry about that. And now we're going to move on to slide number 4. Well, 3. And just some visuals to help aid in a couple of my points. We have a chart up in the left corner here. That is the global military spending. Go along with the hard power, the U.S. spends 36% of all military spending in the world. Russia is sitting right down here at 3.4, which still isn't shabby when it comes to total spending, but the United States still has more than 10 times of that, but they also have 10 times of the GDP, so that makes sense. Now, as we go here, a couple maps to emphasize that geographical security. The U.S. only borders 2 countries, which they have good relations with both, Mexico and Canada. So geographically sound, and on the other east and west coasts, blocked in by oceans, no direct threats anywhere near, so very secure. Russia borders several countries, but they have more military power than pretty much all of them that they border, and a lot of the rest of that nation is the Siberian Russia, which is just a wasteland that it's geographically nobody's coming across that to stop them. So that pretty much sums us up, and hopefully this goes okay. Thank you.